want to welcome you back to the leases with profit this time. And all we're going to cover is the lessor, is because the lessee doesn't change. If you go back and watch the financing lease, it'll be done the same way. The only thing that changes on the lease with profit is the very first entry that you may have. And so that's what we'll cover on this one. And with profit means you have two different ways of making revenue on this one. The first one I have up here is minimum lease payments minus your fair market value is equal to the interest revenue for that's the entire time of the lease. And the other one is the equipment, the fair market value, and the cost of the equipment is your profit from the sales. And over here are some numbers that you may have. It's 212,500. I don't think this applies to this one anymore because I've changed it. But on this one, what we had is the cost of the equipment was $160,000 to make the equipment. So we have $160,000 in it, and we have a lease for 5 years, and we're paying $42,500 each year for it. And there's how you calculate the lease payment. You look at more than that in the next one, but you look at the payment you have, and it's the interest rate, which is the B12. And B9 is the term that you have. And then you look at the fair value, or your recoverable cost is how we like to word it, which is the 177,219. And of course at the beginning of the year, so that's why it's the 1 in there. So the payment came up to $42,500. Okay, and that's the actual calculation of it right there. It's a payment function is what it is. So, okay. So what we have here, this is the present value of the lease payments. Okay, so it's the 10%, $42,500 for 5 years. Okay, so that's our payments that we may have. So with that, so it's the present value of the payments, I'm sorry. So with that, the payments are the $42,500, and that's consistent all the way down for the 5 years. The balance that we have is the $177,219, and of course the first year is the $42,500, and then we take the $177,219 minus the $42,500, and that gives us the $134,719. Then for this one, we have the round function, 134,719 times the 10% and 0 decimals. So that gives us 13,472 is our interest, and then the difference is the amount would decrease the principal by, and 134 minus the decrease in principal, and let's make sure that's absolute valued. So we come up there and it comes up how we want it to. Okay, now this is just a cleanup thing. I don't like that many. I just want to go with the commas. I don't want the dollar signs in there. That's my thing. Okay, so now the difference we have here. For sales type lease with a profit, the lease receivable is your $177,219. The cost of goods sold is the $160,000. Sales will be the $177,219, and inventory is the $160,000. Okay, that's where the difference is at. Okay, so you have lease receivables, the present value of the lease, the cost of goods sold, of course, is the cost of the asset, the actual cost, not the fair value of it. Okay, and then sales will be the fair value or the present value, and then your inventory. Now, we're going to get, if you have a guaranteed residual on here, this affects the lessor only with the guaranteed residual. We'll get more into that in the next one. But for a sales type lease, what you do for the guaranteed residual is subtract off the present value of the guarantee of the residual value, and you subtract it off from the cost of goods sold and sales. Okay, so that's what would change. So the present value of the guaranteed residual would be subtracted from cost of goods sold, and then the present value of the residual would be guaranteed residual would be subtracted from sales, and that's how you take care of that one. Okay, and it doesn't affect the lessee at all because they don't care unless the guaranteed residual is greater than the expected the expected residual value, which is very rare. So it usually it doesn't affect the lessee, it only affects the lessor. Okay, so what we have here then is cash of the $42,500 and the lease receivable is $42,500. And then for the first one, of course, the cash is $42,500. Interest revenue is $13,472, and lease receivable will be $29,028. And then you just keep going down. The cash is $42,500. On the is $10,569 and $31,931. And on the 22nd, we have the 42.5, 73.76, and 35,124. And on the 23rd, we have the, well, not 23rd, 2023, 42,500. Interest revenue is 38.64, and lease receivables 38,636. Now you notice we don't have any depreciation on this because this is a sale, and just like all capital leases, it's handled as if you sold so the lessor would be the one to take the depreciation on it. And what we would have here, the lessor would do the same entries they did before with the balance of $177,219 because that's the present value of the lease payments. So the lessee would be, nothing would change from what it did from the financing lease, because that's what it is for the lessee, is a financing lease. So it starts from there, and then this would be your lease payable, cash, lease payable, interest expense, and cash. So it just continues on with it. So it doesn't really change anything with that one. Okay, so the only difference on this one would be the first entry here is what's different. You have a cost of goods sold and an inventory if you have a profit on your product. And this is basically for companies that manufacture the product and then sell the product and lease the product to somebody else. And that is leasing with a profit for the lessor. Like I said, the lessee doesn't change. You start there and you do it the same way you did the regular financing lease. All right, so that takes care of this one. And then the next one will be the guaranteed residual and probably the bargain purchase option, I hope.